Welcome to Young Money with Tracy Bissett, the advice show for young millionaires in the making. It's time for some $1 Million Straight Talk with Tracy, President and Chief Financial Fitness Trainer at Bissett Financial Fitness. Each week, Tracy's going to tell you what you need to know now at the beginning of your earning curve. Basic and advanced financial concepts made clear, healthy money habits and the missteps to avoid, and all the stuff that you can do to set yourself up for a future of fantastic financial freedom. Ready to lace up and start this week's financial fitness training? Let's do it, Tracy.
Welcome to the Young Money Podcast. I'm really excited today. We have a very special guest, Jodi Huettner. Welcome, Jodi.
Thanks.
So Jodi is the founder and CEO of Helga Wear, Inc. With a background in engineering, Jodi helps companies across industries find more safety and more money with body-specific gear for tradeswomen and women in active and outdoor STEM positions. So welcome again, Jodi.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
Well, it's really my privilege to host you today, and I'm so glad you could join me. We met this year through SheEO, and for those who've been listening to Young Money for some time, you know I've interviewed other women-led ventures through SheEO, and that's an organization where women activators can invest their money and choose the ventures that they do want to fund. Jodi and Helga Wear were one of the recipients of the funds in Canada in 2020, so the 2019-2020 year. And I'm very happy to see that you were one of the recipients because I did vote for you in the whole voting process.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's awesome.
It's fun. Yeah, because it's really cool what you do. So I would love it if you can share in your own words, really kind of what a day in your life looks like, the nature of your business, and just tell the listeners more about it.
Okay, sure. So in the day of life of a CEO, well, it's just day-to-day operations, trying to keep the business on track, trying to kick the can down the road. I'd love to talk about what got me here because that's like my ultimate passion. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, wicked. So it all began when I was a young female engineer working for a local environmental consulting firm. I super struggled to find PPE, and that's personal protective equipment. So, you know, your hard hat, your safety glasses, your steel-toed boots, your high visibility vest that goes over top of everything. But most importantly, my coveralls and my overalls. So not just to find the proper fit was always a challenge, but anyone who's ever worn a pair of coveralls knows what it's like to try and go to the bathroom. If you're a woman, you can't even really take a quick leak because you have to literally take off half of your clothes and expose yourself just to go to the bathroom. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer, but really what it meant for me on site was that every time I had to go to the bathroom, unlike my male counterparts that could unzip and take a quick leak behind the bush, I had to stop my work, call the only person on site with a vehicle. They'd have to stop their work, come pick me up, drive me to the only facility on site. And the sites could be like easily 2 kilometers long, wait for me, and then drive me back. So that cost my team time. It cost me time. And it meant that I had a hard time meeting my tight budgets and schedules. So what ended up happening is that my male counterparts were chosen for the best field positions because they were always on track with budget and timing. And that really bothered me. So I Frankensteined my work gear. I started, making coveralls that had a butt flap like a traditional child's pajama. And that prototype didn't last long at all because when you're working with mostly tradesmen, I won't get into exactly why, but it's not a really good thing to be having a Velcro trapdoor behind you. So I kept going and prototyping until I made something that was super discreet that I could use while out in the bush and basically could take a quick leak just like my male counterparts. Yeah, so that's what I was doing. That's kind of like on the background as I'm working as an engineer and trying to get ahead and, just kicking my own personal success can down the road, trying my hardest. The epiphany for me was I had a heart-to-heart with the entrepreneur who owned and founded the environmental consulting firm I was working with, where he took me aside at a Christmas party and he was just gushing to me about how being an entrepreneur and how taking this business from nothing to like an 80-person consulting firm has been his life's joy. And he's almost at retirement, and he was just gushing passion. And he actually said to me, "Are you passionate about what you're doing here with us?" And I was like a deer in the headlights. I couldn't say anything. I just couldn't say anything. And he said, "Well, you know what? Don't worry about it. This isn't a huge problem, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is you're going to get to the end of a career like myself, and you're going to look back and resent what you did because it wasn't what you were passionate about. And that's a shame for you, but it's also a shame because you're robbing somebody else who would be passionate about this job the chance to have it." So that was at Christmas time. I know. That was at Christmas time, and it really affected me. From that conversation, I started making my own really weird little business plan because I had no idea what I was doing. And by March, yeah, by March of that year, so a few months later, I walked into his office and put my business plan down, and I said, "This is it. This is what I'm passionate about." And I've been doing this actually while I've been working here for you guys. So he took a look and he said, "Wow, well, you know what? I think we're going to do whatever it takes to help you get there. I think you're onto something." So that is really what I believe the key to my success has been, is that I started a business based off of something that I personally experienced the pain and the problem, and then I solved it for myself. I was saving myself about an hour a day. I was sampling one more well a day than I was before, and it improved what I was doing. And then suddenly I thought, this is crazy that we don't have women's PPE, women's specific PPE. Our body dimensions are totally different than the men's. How come we don't? And I got a bee in my bonnet. And I thought, you know what? This has got to change. And even though I'm giving up the financial stability of an engineering paycheck and jumping into this entrepreneurial world of the unknown, I think I will get to the end of my life or the end of my career. And if I've helped, a few companies find more safety, find more productivity, and most importantly, helped a handful of women, save some relief and some pain on site, then that's good. That's good for me. Even if I don't potentially make a million, although that's of course the dream, it's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because it needs to be done, and I know I'll be very happy if I can.
So that's so amazing that you had such a positive mentor who contributed to you finding your voice and solving your own problem. I think it's just so amazing and really inspiring. Now, you mentioned that's one of the things that led you to your success and finding where you should be. And even if you didn't make $1 million, then things would be okay. And I think in the back of your mind, knowing if you had to, you could go back to an engineer job was probably there, knowing you could take that kind of safe, calculated risk and step out for a while. When you do think about all the success in your life that you've achieved to date, because you've had so many successes, certainly to become an engineer is one of them, but then to go on and start this brand new vision, what would you say some of the key themes are that have shown up over the years?
Okay, so apart from that, developing a business around something that you've lived and that you're passionate about, I'd have to say community. So let's just say right off the hop for me, one of the biggest challenges was getting the money it takes to start a business. And it came to a point where all I had was a business plan and character references to try and get any kind of financing. So just try walking into a bank, getting a $30,000 loan with a business plan you've just developed and a couple character references. So what ended up happening for me is like my community really, really stepped in, and I had not only a successful Kickstarter that relied mostly on my primary network to drive to success, but I had local companies actually put their finances on the line and said, "We believe in her and what she's doing. If she can't make the bills, we'll make sure she can." And those were people I had only known through the community, through having done work for them and totally told them about what I'm doing, what my passion is, and what I'm trying to accomplish, and all the hurdles and barriers. And people just seemed to come out of the woodwork in every way to support. And that was a huge component to success. And then I'd say a third would be mentors. And I guess that's super ties in with network and community, but take on as many mentors as you possibly can. I'll mention a couple of mine. A mentor that was given to me as part of my conditional debt financing. So two community groups, Van City and Banque Développement du Canada, came together and said, hey, if you pony up some of the money, we'll pony up the rest. But she's got to take on a mentor, a financial mentor of our choosing for at least 2 years at least 4 hours a month. And that person can kind of keep an eye on her. And if they see that she can't meet her benchmarks, we'll try diverting her back into engineering so she can actually pay this debt financing back off. So that mentor that they paired me with, after the 2 years passed, I didn't even notice the 2 years was up. I was at the point where we had never missed a meeting with each other. We'd developed quite a rapport, and I was at the point where I was looking for investment money. So he mentioned to me casually in one of our meetings, he said, oh, our 2 years is up. And I said, oh, I had no idea. He goes, and even more than that, though, I'm not done with you, and I think I'm going to step in as your investor. So that was one of my early mentors that actually, ended up being a critical part of the success story of Helga Wear. And then the next mentor that took me on was through the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs, and that's Suzanne Siemens of Isle, formerly Lunapads. She was the one who super encouraged me to apply for the SheEO venture competition. So for the no interest loan competition. And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have done it. And that has just catapulted my business in terms of success. And now, whether they know it or not, every single venturist I talk to in our weekly all calls, they're all my mentors now. And it's just like my world has exploded, and the access to resources is like unbelievable. And it all comes from people taking me on and me grabbing at mentors everywhere they possibly pop up.
Well, I think that's fantastic. And what I really like that you shared, I mean, you've started a company to solve problems for women and to make things more equitable in the construction trade and make everything more viable for them. But many of your mentors were male, and so they trusted your intelligence, your ability to get things done, and they could see what was possible for you perhaps before you even did. And I just think that's amazing. So then you found your female mentors, and certainly with SheEO there are a lot of them, which is wonderful, and totally echo what you're saying with the fellow venturists. And we even find it in the activator community. You put something out there that you have a need or you'd like some assistance with, and next thing 10 people are offering to help you. So it's a really great community to be a part of.
Absolutely.
And so when you think about your biggest financial challenge, or could be that or something you wish you'd known earlier in life, was it that initial raise of money, or was there a more challenging time?
That was certainly one of the biggest, but there has been another major financial challenge. If I could, talk to any other entrepreneur, especially a product-based business, something that happened to me early on was after the successful Kickstarter, I took some of that product and I sent it to local distributors to try and get interest from some big industry buyers. Right away, I got interest from a huge industry buyer. I won't say who. They said, we love your product, but we want to see it in high vis with CSA striping so it can be marketed to industry. And we want to see it at a guaranteed 1,000 units a week. So then it took me a year and a whole bunch more financing to secure like offshore, reliable, great quality manufacturing and to land a bunch of product in bulk. And then I sent them what I had landed, and they said, well, this is great. It's actually exactly what we're looking for, but we're not going to buy until we also have it in poly cotton and flame retardant. So and this is actually a very common story that I've heard a handful of times since I experienced it. And so I really want to impress upon future entrepreneurs that if you have a product-based business, a huge industry buyer is likely not going to look at you if you have a single SKU. They're going to want to see a full product line developed on your dollar before they're going to make a purchase. And they might not be forthright with you off the front, but that's something you need to know. And then also, as a starting business, if you're bootstrapping like me, the more SKUs you have, the easier it is for you to tank. So it's to your advantage to keep your SKUs to the bare minimum possible and to land sales before you've manufactured, so that you're not stuck like I was with a huge whack of product and no buyer for it, because then you got a huge race.
You mentioned the term bootstrapping. Could you explain that in kind of plain terms for the Young Money listeners?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. So bootstrapping, picture this. I went from an engineering salary to being on EI while I went through self-employment training. So there was no money saved. I had no money saved up at that point. So living off of the EI for about a year, and then suddenly having to not only pay for the roof over my head, but to pay for absolutely everything to do with the business. Every prototype or sample I made, all the materials, everything came out of my pocket. So what bootstrapping meant for me was everything that for me was prior a hobby. So painting, playing music. Yes, seriously, like I had to get so creative with taking on jobs in the gig economy. So that means maybe I worked 5 hours helping someone paint a fence. I did what's called the Craigslist shuffle to find gigs. You go on the gigs. Yeah. Every morning you wake up, you look at the gigs on Craigslist, you quickly skim through and see if there are any 5-hour things that, pay the amount you need them to pay, just to be able to kick your finances down even a week or a month down the road to keep going. And that is a scary thing to do, but that means you're at least covering your basic overhead, and then every spare penny you've got goes into the business, every penny. And you're constantly looking at more creative or inventive ways, like for example, short-term renting out my apartment here in Vancouver while I house sat for people in Deep Cove. So I was making money house sitting. My rent was getting paid because someone else was living here. And I was able to work from their home office in Deep Cove in a beautiful house. So things like that, anything you can do to just try and keep kicking the can even a week further down the road. That's what bootstrapping a business is. And for me, that went on for years. But there's a lot of power in that too. Like initially, if I hadn't known that's what it was going to be like, that would have been a very scary, scary thing. But having gone through it, it's a very powerful thing, because now I know the power in the gig economy and that there's so much out there available. Like if you have a budget item that you can't meet and it's maybe, $800 or whatever it happens to be, I know exactly how many gigs I'm going to have to pull, apart from working the daily grind doing Helga, to try and make that happen. So it's not like I say, no, I'm not going on a vacation this year, or no, I'm not going to afford that thing. It's just, what do I have to do to afford that thing? So it's very powerful.
Hey there, entrepreneurs. Is this episode inspiring you about your business? Are you thinking about starting one from scratch, or are you thinking about taking yours to the next level? I know in any situation, managing and understanding the cash flow in your business is absolutely critical. To help you learn those skills, I've developed the Cash Control Bootcamp, which is an introductory live online group program that empowers entrepreneurs just like you to demystify your business finances and get control of your money. That's going to allow you to sleep better and provide the lifestyle that you want for you and your family. The Cash Control Bootcamp, Know Your Numbers, Protect Your Business, and Grow for the Future is absolutely for you, and it's powering this episode. Check out the link in the show notes to get registered today. Well, I love that. And for everybody who's listening, whether you're a student, whether you're early on in your career, maybe you're an entrepreneur in the same position that Jodi was, if you're motivated and you have goals and there's things you want to accomplish, if you look for it, and it doesn't sound very hard, but if you're a hardworking person, you can earn that money in a relatively easy way, as long as you're willing to do the hard work and hustle.
Yeah, as long as you're willing to push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
And I imagine that's one of your other success traits that has gotten you here, being able to try those new things and just go for it.
Yeah, it was quite early on, actually, when I was trying to get into the self-employment program through EI. That I knew I needed that as a very first step. And I kept getting, no, you don't qualify. No, this, no, that. Prior to the passion, would have been like, no, that's so terrible. It means I can't do this thing I really want to do. Oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to figure something out back in engineering. But I had a real frank conversation with myself that said, you know what? No is not an acceptable answer when it's concerning my business, when it's concerning Helga Wear. I feel as protective of it as I would a child. So I know that I'm going to get many, many, many no's. And I've gotten thousands of no's. And with every single no, you have to thank the person giving you the no, and then immediately turn around and try and figure out how to make it a yes. And you have to have that kind of gumption over and over, whether it's with your own finances, trying to, make your own personal overhead work, or whether it's trying to get to the next step with your business. You're going to get so many no's. And for me, if I wasn't passionate about what I'm doing, I would have accepted those no's and taken them as no's.
So you're clearly very resilient because you were able to bounce back many times from the thousands of no's.
Yeah.
Now, you've already shared such great tips already, especially when it comes to financing aspect and the anybody who's got a product-based business. Are there any success tips you'd like to share so that people can start out that way if they're thinking about making their own business? Like I know I've already heard the importance of surrounding yourself with mentors and community, but if there's any other gem you've learned along the way, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, again, so for a product-based business, and this is one tip that I learned from Suzanne Siemens, it's forget trade shows, forget sinking your money into chasing these big distributors, because it's going to be really difficult. And nowadays with the internet and with websites and, Wix and all the technology that's out there, you can actually start just with one sale at a time. Make yourself a simple website and just start selling. So instead of right away trying to chase those big wholesalers or big distributors, which, in your mind makes a lot of sense, it is really tough to do, especially if you're bootstrapping. So a tip would be just start with one sale at a time and developing a website for free. You can develop like Wix, super, super easy to use, easy to make. And yeah, it might not be a killer website, but it'll work, and it's something to start. And then it'll gradually build from there. So I wish I had definitely done that right from the start.
Yeah, it probably could have just changed the trajectory a little bit or allowed you to build up the mass before you were getting all that other feedback and you had all that inventory
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. And there's one difference about what I'm doing too. And it's that I have to educate before I make a sale now. So if I want to make a wholesale, the buyer 90% of the time is a middle-aged man. And I have to physically explain and educate him that women are not a scaled down version of the male body dimension first. And then I have to get them to be believers of the product. So that's a really tough slog. It's really hard to do. And it has happened for me, which is great. But it's taking this step of education that hopefully lots of other product-based businesses won't have. That means that it's going to be harder for me to make this thing screaming success, but it's worth it if I can get one man to look me in the eye and say, you know what, you're right. Women are not a scaled down version of man, and they do have distinct body needs. So let's start talking about that and addressing that. That's where my real joy happens. So.
Yeah, I was surprised when I had heard you speak in March, and then you talked about even all the health issues that surfaced because of not going to the washroom as frequently as you should. So not just not a scaled down version of a man, but because of the circumstances, it can create other issues for employees. So if employers out there are motivated to make sure that they're doing the best that they can for their employees, male and female, part of that involves your products as a solution.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, it's really hard to fit everybody with PPE. We're all so vastly different. And like one of my mentors says, we don't have to boil the ocean, but we're looking at the biggest risk group right here, and it's low-hanging fruit, and it's women. So we can address that, and at least it's a step in the right, a concrete, tangible step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And you must receive such positive feedback from women who are using your PPE and who feel like it's revolutionized their ability to do their work.
Oh yeah, I do. I absolutely do. And even just the simple comments like, I don't get snagged on things anymore when I'm moving around. It might not sound huge, but actually that's huge. Slips, trips, and falls like make up a huge percentage of the injuries, workplace injuries in Canada every year. So yeah, and then even just I save half. It takes me half the amount of time now to go to the bathroom as it did before. That's huge. If you try adding those numbers up, even though it's maybe only a minute and a half per instance, but what that's doing is it's actually encouraging women to stay hydrated. It's encouraging them to go and take a quick washroom break. That's going to be seen over the long haul in terms of overall health. So that makes a big difference for me.
Well, and it makes an economic case too for buyers because we're saving money on accidents. We don't have people getting hurt. Now we're going to have healthy employees who want to continue to work with us. And the morale is going to be good and positive, and we're going to have a great team. So I'm sure the economics, once you've got somebody's ear and they're open to listening, the economics actually sell it.
They do. Yeah, they do.
So you should be extremely proud of what you've accomplished and the vision of where you're going to take it in terms as you conquer the world and bring it to every woman who needs it. So just a couple questions before I let you go. Is there anyone who inspires you when it comes to financial matters?
Yeah, I'd say every mentor I've had inspires me when it comes to financial matters. Well, my first mentor was in the realm of finance, so that's a no-brainer. But then Suzanne Siemens, like she has definitely inspired my financial decisions too. And in terms of, just the basic advice, peel it back, do one sale at a time, focus on one sale at a time, build a website. I guess, just the whole community of SheEO. I can say I follow what they've done from a financial standpoint. Their new way of thinking about not just a profit model, but something that has a bigger impact and is going to get us to a better situation and give a better alternative to the way things have been going so far. That's really inspiring to me, and it helps me make my financial decisions, considering a bigger picture, not just a profit model.
Now, before I let you go, are there any final pieces of advice or any insights that you've already shared that you'd like to reiterate with the listeners?
Sure. I guess I'd say I'm going to hammer on the community because, there are so many things I couldn't have done this without, but right off the hop, it was community. And people say, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And yeah, it's true, but it's way bigger than that. It's like, it's not just who you know, but your involvement with them, your involvement with the community, how much you jump into and throw yourself into. Yeah, that's what's really gonna help you keep going when it's really, really hard, and when you don't know where the next bill is gonna get paid from. It's your community. It's all the supports around you that you had no idea were there until you found yourself in entrepreneur land needing them.
Excellent. Well, I can't think of a better note to leave that on. And so before you go today, what are you working on now? And where can listeners go to learn more about you, Jodi, and more about Helga Wear?
Well, we're working on a bunch of things, but I'd have to say probably the most exciting thing is I'm working on developing a female-bodied flight suit to solve the challenge of toileting while flying, emergency toileting while flying. So nobody really wants to think about it or talk about it, but in emergencies, guy pilots, they can pee in a bottle. It's not very hard. But women, we haven't addressed that as an issue. And it has way broader application too. It actually has application for women with mobility challenges. So women in wheelchairs that can't, toilet independently from a chair mostly because of the garments. So it's got an interesting range of applications, and it's super exciting for me because, again, we're solving another problem that probably shouldn't still exist, but it does. So, and where everybody can find out more about us, I'd definitely say go to the website, links to all of our social there, and you can also sign up or subscribe to be on an email list. We don't write too often, but we'll keep you abreast of any major spectacular things in Helga World.
Well, that's fantastic. And certainly we'll put the website and the social links in the show notes so people can easily find you. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jodi. I know I'm taking away a lot of really great insights. I love how you shared how you got the vision to make this business because of your own personal pain. You could see the potential, and not only were you creating something for yourself, but now you're making something that enables safety in the workplace, improves productivity, solves a need that women have. And so that's fantastic. Love the keys to your success that you mentioned around network, community, certainly stepping out of your comfort zone, being willing to try new things, all really critical when you are going to start a business, and especially your resilience, because you heard those 1,000 no's, but you still kept going. Loved how you shared so candidly the struggles with the financial side, because certainly when you are starting a business, it is hard to raise money initially, and it is even harder when you do have a product-based business. So thank you so much for your candor today and joining us on Young Money.
Oh, you're welcome, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me.
So there you have it, listeners. Jodi Huettner, founder and CEO of Helga Wear, Inc. Until next time, take good care and stay financially fit.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. To all you millionaires in the making out there, if you love this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes to keep your financial fitness training going. Oh, and leave us a review. And be sure to visit Visit, 2 S's, 2 T's, financialfitness.com to take your free financial fitness assessment. Find out how financially fit you really are. See you next week, young millionaires to be.